He has awoken.
Yeah.
The Mary Poppins of partying.
Yeah.
Mr. Andrew W.K.
Well, thank you very much for having me here.
Thanks for coming by, man. What
Thank
a
you.
heck of a start to this, man. Just your music, it's exhilarating.
Well, thank you very much.
It's a good pregame for any sort of a chatter interview.
I'm happy that you get that feeling from it.
100%. Now, I was going to actually kick off this discussion with a gripe I have as a fan of yours. 12 years off since we've gotten new rock music from Andrew W.K., but I understand it's actually not your fault. We can blame this on the party gods.
Yes, that's always my go-to scapegoat whenever I can't explain why something has gone the way it has. I say, don't blame me, blame the party gods. And since they don't represent themselves in physical form, there's really not much they can do about it.
But you guys weren't on the same page, I understand, as the story goes, where you actually had to give in to what the party gods wanted you to say.
Yes.
And once you did that, this album just came around like that.
Yes, thank you for being so aware of the situation. That's exactly correct. I fought with them, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. But once I accepted, not gave in to defeat, but accepted, almost embraced the dynamics of their power, then they used it for my own good. And that's a beautiful lesson to learn. It was a hard-earned lesson, but I'm just thankful that I still get to be here and still get to exist and still get to serve them, those party gods.
Well, it seems very in line to the ideology, the way of thinking of Andrew W.K. and the party way of life, where I know you're a big believer in giving into both the pain in life, maybe the not so nice stuff, and the great things, the joy of life.
Yeah, it seems like that's the best way to go about it. You got to try to find a way to manage the challenging times. The good times, those are easy. You don't have to manage those, Then you get frustrated when things aren't always good. Just even now, I wouldn't say at this very instant I don't feel good, but 2 seconds ago I didn't. Then I snapped out of it. So, these ups and downs, they ebb and flow. And if you can keep a consistency amidst that, a consistency of appreciation, a consistency of gratitude, a consistency of devotion, like devoted to this quest that I'm on, for example, that keeps me able to appreciate the ups and downs, but also focused. So that doesn't matter if I feel good or not. I have work to do. Doesn't matter if I feel really happy. Don't let that go to your head either, because you have a job to do. These party gods are counting on you. And even if that's not true and it's all just in my head, it's keeping one foot going in front of the other, and it's keeping the party as hard as I can.
You talk about consistency, and you're remarkably consistent when you think about, sonically, how this record sounds compared to the music we know and love from Andrew W.K. I mean, you're iconic in terms of how consistent you are aesthetically. This is really we actually have a fan right here in the Andrew W.K.
Wow.
outfit,
Well
if
done.
you will.
Well dressed.
But you sing on Ever Again, the lead single off of this project. You sing that they say that people can't change, but you're proof that they can. So I'm curious, sonically it's consistent, aesthetically you are very consistent. How have you changed? When you wrote that lyric, what were you talking about?
Well, there's often, even to my own surprise, more contradiction than there is consistency. Or that is one of the consistencies, is contradiction. There's a lot of incongruency, as you just pointed out. I'm talking about changing, yet I haven't really changed at all. Especially in the arts, people often are looking for what they would call evolution or growth or development. I'm trying to grow into what I already am, to some extent, refine what I already am, perfect what this is, rather than try to invent something new for it to be. I'm not so interested in reinvention when I haven't even completed this invention. If I'm trying to make a wheel, for example, I'm probably still on an octagon-style shape, and I still have to round those edges out until it really rolls. So I'm not going to abandon the project just because I'm stuck at an octagon. I'm going to keep fine-tuning and sanding those edges until the baby rolls, because when it rolls, it'll roll all night long.
Sounds like lyrics.
It actually is something our old stage manager used to say, because he was obsessed with race cars, and he would compare everything to NASCAR. He said, Big Daddy, we're going to get up on that stage tonight. We're going to build a race car, Big Daddy. It may get, bump into a few walls. She may take some hits, but we're going to polish her back up and put her back on that racetrack, Big Daddy, because that's what we do. Because when she rolls all night long. So he comes to mind often when I need to find focus or need to think about race cars. I think about Big Daddy. He called himself Big Daddy, and he called everybody else Big Daddy. That was one of his charms.
You talk about, kind of not evolving into something different, but kind of just growing into who you already are. You seem like you have a great command over who you are. How far back does that date? Like, when did you really get to a place in your life? Was it before, I Get Wet, when you first kind of broke on the scene? Did you know who you were then?
I don't know that I know who I am now, but I have a framework to explore what that might be within, which is the Andrew W.K. This is my tool or my mechanism by which to experience life and existence and oneself and all that good stuff that you hope you get to do as a human being. But I don't think I have anything really more figured out than I did. I might even know less than I did when I was 4 or 5 years old. I could tell I liked music and the piano, and I could tell that I liked working on things with all that I had because it blocked out the other thoughts that I didn't like thinking about. And again, having to be able to apply yourself to something seems to be intrinsically bound up with perhaps the meaning of life. Even if you don't know what the meaning is, to be able to give all of yourself to something seems to approach what we would call the meaning of life.
Yeah, a purpose maybe.
Yes, purpose.
The second song we heard off of the album that you put out was Music is Worth Living For, which is a great mantra, by the way. That's like a t-shirt dying to happen. But on that song, or I shouldn't say on that song, but I have heard in past interviews that you've spoken about where that song comes from, and it comes from this inner conflict that you have with yourself about these voices, and it's really, it's universal. You have these voices, we all have these voices of doubt telling you can't do this, you can't do that, and sort of this this battle that you have within yourself. And I was struck by that because you have just been a symbol of positivity, a symbol of motivation throughout your career. You're being honored, we'll get to that in a little bit later this spring, for those accomplishments and for that attitude that you've been able to spread around the world. But I'm curious, how far back do those voices go, and how loud are those voices in your head, those voices of self-doubt and those voices of negativity?
That's a great question, and I'm glad that, well, I feel sorry for you in a way that you can relate, but it's also nice to find solidarity and realize that, most human beings are made up of this kind of conflict, and perhaps we might be benefited from the tension that these two competing voices have. I think of it these days as the voices in my mind and then the one single voice in my heart. And the one single voice in my heart seems to be coming from the deepest part of myself, but also from some otherworldly place that I can't access or see as easily with my senses. The mind voice is the one that is the most active and it makes the most noise and will tell me 10 million reasons why something won't work and why I can't do something, why everything's falling apart and how it's all pointless and there's no meaning to anything and you might as well just give up now. That one's running 24/7, real loud. It's real passionate about the doubt and the skepticism and the negativity. And then there's this very persistent, pinpoint sharp voice that says, do this, that, or the other. It gives me commands, basically. The most frightening part is I don't usually understand what it's telling me to do because, again, my mind is what understands things. It will want logical reasons why you're supposed to move to New York, for example, when you're 18 without a job or without going to college or anything. It'll say, well, you can't do that. That doesn't make any sense. You got to be rational. But this other voice just says, do this, move to New York, move to New York. The other voice will say, well, you shouldn't follow a career in music. That doesn't make any sense. You'll never be able to do anything. The other one says, this is what you're supposed to do. So eventually you have to turn off your, I can't turn those voices off, but I just don't do what they say and do whatever the other voice says. And someone says, well, why did you do that? I say, I don't know, because I can't explain it. I understand the least about what's going on in my own life.
Is it a level of what you're talking about with the party gods, kind of giving in to this notion, giving in to this?
Yeah, you want to find
wonder?
The formless is difficult to interact with, and yet at the same time we're constantly being influenced by it. So you create identities for these things. Well, the party gods, your instinct, you can call it your intuition, the subconscious. It's something palpable and strong, but we know not of where it comes from. So giving it a name or giving it almost like an imaginary friend type quality can make it easier and certainly helps me explain it when I'm talking to someone else.
Yeah, personifying it in a sense.
Yeah. Humans have always tended to do that, and I think it's natural.
Well, you've been such a motivational guy throughout your whole career. I mean, I remember watching, was it Dear Andrew W.K? There was a great show back in the day that you hosted for a short time where
your friend Andrew W.K.
Your friend Andrew W.K, where you'd actually respond to people, I think, and give them advice. I thought we could channel that a little bit here.
Okay.
Build has such a wide, it's a global audience watching us right now on Build. So I thought if we gave you some scenarios, we don't have any live viewers on the camera right now, but if I give you some scenarios of like people that may be disappointed, going through some rough stuff that we all go through, maybe just directly to camera, you could actually deliver some words of advice.
I'll try.
Okay, so let's say I am somebody, we're getting into March now, we're about 2 months into the year. We all have New Year's resolutions. Let's say I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to diet, and I'm not keeping to it. I can't put the candy down. I can't stop going to the drive-thru, and I'm looking for those words of motivation to get back on the wagon, get back on the track. What would you say?
You have to have a reason that makes you want to be more than you already are, or in this case of losing weight, less than you already are physically. I, for example, couldn't find the personal motivation to even get up and face the world and do something like what we're doing right now. So I have to devote myself to something that is bigger than those weak feelings inside me, bigger than the fears, bigger than my appetites, bigger than my desire to lay down and rest forever. Because that is what will cause me to then become more than I am, or again, in this case, less than you are. So maybe it's, some people do it like, I want to fit into a certain outfit, or I want to be able to run a marathon. But even that can sometimes feel a little bit empty. If you find something that takes all that you have to give, not just on a physical body level, but from heart and mind, then your body will find itself approaching how it's meant to be, which might not be a certain number on the scale or even a certain form of looking, but if you give your body a point, a purpose beyond something that we might call superficial, it will do what it needs to do that. That's why they say, people who retire, all of a sudden their body's like, oh, that's it? Okay, time to get old, and then they go, because there's no point anymore. So it seems like the human spirit needs that sense of meaning. Even if you have to come up with it in a convoluted sense, you have to trick yourself into feeling as though there is a point to life.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you really won't live anymore.
Well said. Round of applause for Andrew, guys.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very generous.
Now, there are 3 motivational speeches on this album, I understand, because it's 16 tracks if you look at the track listing, but 3 of those actually belong to motivational speeches.
That's correct, yes. That was an idea that was presented to me by a woman I've had the privilege of working with for years off and on, but quite intensely around this album recording project. Her name is Karen Glauber, and she said, out of the blue, she doesn't often give advice like this, so when she does, I really listen. She said, I think you should have motivational speeches on this album. Now, if that had been my idea, again, I would have thought myself right out of doing it, all those doubts and all those, that's going to be stupid, that doesn't make any sense, it's going to sound, what, just a voice talking? But when she said it, I thought, okay, and right away it resonated with some kind of instinctual feeling that she was right. And it doesn't matter if I even like this idea. I have to do this. This is what you're supposed to do. And she saw it as a way to connect these almost disparate activities I've been engaged in, such as motivational speaking and writing, a way to use that effort and marry it to the music on the album process and the album experience.
Can we talk about the album artwork actually really quick? Because it's a striking image, and
yes.
I love, this, we always have this here for the interviews here at Bill.
Very
but
nice.
Today it's especially nice because we do get to see in, very
nice
large form.
It's the largest I've seen it, actually.
And those are actually the same shoes.
Well, not quite. Not quite. Those are
different?
LeBron James, an earlier model. This is, like the
we've
2 years
them
later.
Slightly.
But they're both LeBron James.
But this is from your buddies Boris and Julie.
Yes, Boris Vallejo and Julie Bell are the power couple of fantasy art. They are both consummate oil painters, and they not only paint on their own, they also paint together. And this painting was painted by both of them together. We worked through many different concepts, finally settling on this one in almost an anticlimactic sense, at least for me, because I thought, if you're familiar with their work or the fantasy art genre in general, it's usually quite triumphant, and a lot of action is often portrayed. It's rare that the image would be still like this. This is a still moment. There's tension, but it still is it's a silent type of feeling. But Boris especially was very passionate. He said, this is going to be a very powerful painting. He said he could already see it in his mind, so I really trusted in him. And the concept, as far as what story this is trying to tell, was all unknown to us. And Boris and Julie themselves, as artists, know that as much as you want to paint a painting, the painting will paint itself if you just facilitate it.
They talk about that. It's like a dance.
That's exactly right. That's what they said. And if you are open enough to following where the piece is going to take itself, then you can help it along that path without, again, standing in the way or letting your own tastes or opinions dictate what it in fact wants to be. And there ended up being more meaning in it and more resonance with the album than I ever would have expected, especially if we had consciously tried to design a painting that was supposed to express something. This expressed a spirit that was even elusive for me.
Do you ever find that in music? I wanted to ask you, when I heard Boris say that in talking about him painting, how there's a point where he starts, of course, as the painter, you're painting a picture, but the painting actually takes over. Do you find that in songwriting or in music construction, that there's a point where this song is now taking over and the song is driving wherever the heck it's going to wind up?
The whole time, from the beginning. That's
From the
only
beginning?
way. That's the only way I've been able to do it.
Okay.
Where the song exists in itself, it just is not audible. And then it's like a sculpture, right? It's there in this block of stone.
It's for you to whittle away.
And you're trying to then make it visible. So I am presented by some other power, this vision of this song. And it's strange because you think of visions as a visual thing, but a vision can occur in any sense, to your inner ear, right? Your mind's ear. So I hear this song about how it's supposed to feel, and usually quite detailed, sometimes even down to the lyrics and the melody and all that. And then it's, okay, well, how can I actually make this audible? So I just then replicate what I'm sort of hearing. It's like a waking dream, I suppose.
Interesting.
And in that regard, I don't feel like I ever made up any of it. I don't feel like even, all this was presented to me as, here's what you should do. Now, do you have the strength and the patience and the courage and the selflessness to some extent to do what you were told to do, Andrew? And sometimes I have, and sometimes I got a big head and thought that I should be able to make up what I want, but that's not how this works.
Do you talk to yourself a lot, like throughout the day?
What, audibly?
Or internally?
Well, audibly would be curse words.
Okay.
And those are usually directed at reality, not so much myself. They should be directed at me more, but general curse words, cursing reality in general. But the inner dialogue the instantaneous thoughts are very emotional and very negative. And then I try to counter those with anything that I can come up with at the time to not go down. Because I can't afford to go down. There's too much at stake. Every passing day, you're taking on more responsibilities as a human, many that are your own and even other people's responsibilities, and those are noble pressures. And again, that gives me, to know someone else is counting on me, even if it was just you, to show up and do what we're doing here. Right. This guy's counting on me, Andrew, so you can't be at your worst. You're not allowed to go down. You're not allowed to fail right now. You have to do the best you can. It doesn't make the pain go away, but it gives you something to push against through the pain. Because all this work for me is therapeutic and aspirational. I'm not coming from a place of positive emotion. I'm coming from a complete deficit of those feelings. So I had to find something to do with my life that allowed me to experience those good feelings that I wasn't getting otherwise.
Something that is, dare I say, more important than everything we've spoken about so far is something that's happening in April down in Washington, D.C. You're being honored as the inaugural Person of the Year by the American Association of Suicidology, which is huge and deserves a round of applause, actually. It's a very huge honor.
Thank you.
How does that feel when you found out you were going to receive that honor?
Well, you don't know how exactly to react to those sorts of events because it was not anything I set out to win, or it wasn't a recognition that I even imagined was possible. And it's not a field in which I have a lot of direct experience in terms of a professional medical expert on any level. It's completely outside my realm. I'm still processing it. I only found out about this just over a week ago, so this is still it's very surprising. But, all I could think was, okay, well, someone, even if it's just the organizer who chose me, they got something good from this. It's so easy to go out into the world and contribute bad or harm things or just not contribute any good. And because I've done a lot of that too. That's easy. You could just lay in bed and make the world a worse place. So to think that if anybody got anything that could be possibly considered or defined as positive from this effort beyond myself, because I'm, again, first trying to cheer myself up. If this guy was cheered up or he thought other people were cheered up, or this organization who's so invested in the cheerfulness of humanity finds this work I'm doing to be contributing, that's, you know, what can you say to that? I feel lucky that I have the chance to contribute to this larger team effort that these folks are also engaged in.
Was that something you set out to do, though? Is it, you know, through the positivity, the relentlessly positive music that you've put out now for, you know, almost 20 years, to address suicide awareness? And was that a cause that is at all near and dear to your heart?
Not directly, not formally, but only in the most, I'd say, important way, which is, as a human being, you can't not be bound up in that. It doesn't matter if you're conscious of it or you make it official or you're completely engaged in a more ambiguous way. I mean, what else are you going to do with your life? I want to focus on good feelings, as much as those can be defined in a world that's possible to be viewed as you know, a very intense, overwhelming, confusing place. There do seem to be pinpoints of goodness that can't be doubted, can't be picked apart. That not everything descends into nihilistic despair. And music and this kind of work was one of those things I could say, okay, yeah, well, maybe there is a lot of confusion. Maybe there is a lot of stuff to feel bad about. Maybe I feel bad about myself, but I don't feel bad about this. So I'm going to work on that.
Yeah.
You know?
We have to get to audience Q&A in just a second, but I did want to ask what the deal with tour is. I know you're going overseas for a little while.
Yes.
Are there American dates? What's the latest on that?
Well, we're hoping to tour because of the new album more than ever for this next year and maybe 2 years and further, hopefully. The good thing is, you know, even though it may appear to some folks, and rightfully so, that we took a break or went away, we never really did. We were being active as a band throughout this whole time. So the band is well oiled, you know, in good top form, very oily, very greasy group.
A rounded wheel.
Yeah,
if you will.
We're polishing the wheel and getting it rounded through the use of the oils and the lubricants. And while we'll be hitting the road on those wheels this spring and into the summer, and I hope all the way through fall and winter.
Right on. We look forward to it. Now, for your loving public, where is the first question going to come from? Right here.
Hi, thanks for being here. So in terms of performing, which do you prefer more, the larger kind of venues or festivals or like smaller, intimate spaces?
I like them both, as I think many performers would agree. They have their dynamic charms. I've actually found that sometimes a venue that's so small is more intimidating than the big one because you're more clearly aware of each individual and their mind and their eyes and their thoughts and their spirit and their soul. And that's a lot, you know, just to be in a room with one person is quite intense. To be alone is quite intense. But if there's 1,000 people, then it does become this entity unto itself, or 10,000 people. This music was designed to be, you know, by the recordings themselves, to be a big experience, as big as I could ever make it. So the bigger the better as far as the aesthetic is concerned. But I'll take whatever I can get at this point.
Thank you very much. We have another studio question right here.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Thanks again for your great wardrobe and great blood.
Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Wow, well, glad to see you doing new stuff.
Well, thank you.
And, well, will you be practicing positive partying for the rest of your life to continue generations? Because, I don't know, I just want to get these younger generations to, I guess, know the power of positive partying.
Well, thank you. Yes, and that is a great way to put it, because it's not knowing about me or any one particular person's effort. It is a mindset that has existed far before me, I'd say throughout all of eternity. It could be called the life force itself, and absolutely, I will continue to practice it because I need a lot of practice when it comes to this. You know, but the beauty of it is the practice pays off as you do it. The work itself is not the result of practice. The work is part of the practice. The work is practicing. Practicing how to party as best you can. And if you really party as hard as you can, others hopefully will take note. Those that are looking for it will find it. Seek and ye shall party.
Yeah.
And congratulations on your 10-year anniversary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, wow. Hey, you've referenced the blood on the costume there. I have to ask you, this was like a playground debate back in the day when the album came out back, I Get Wet. Is that real blood?
Oh, yes. Yes, it is.
Can
But
you
it's
tell
not
that
all
story
my
really
blood.
quick?
Well, most of the blood belonged to an unfortunate, well, I don't want to assume it was unfortunate, but it was slaughtered. So a slaughtered beast, of the pig persuasion. And this was from a butcher shop. And you can go into a butcher shop and ask for blood. Well, not every butcher shop. This one humored me. This was in Brooklyn. Well, I think I was 19 at that point, so it was a while ago. And the butcher obliged, and I had it as a backup plan, and I tried to get my own blood to flow, and it did. Well, it didn't flow, it trickled. And so I added in some of that beast's blood, and I'll always be grateful for that porcine contribution.
I've always wanted to ask you that. I'm glad I got
Yeah,
to.
it was all real blood, but not all my own.
All right. Well, shout out to the pig.
Yeah.
We have time for one more pseudo question on that note, and it's going to come from right over here.
Hello.
Hey, man. So I was wondering who or what inspired you to start playing music?
Well, we had a piano in my house, and my dad was taking piano lessons. This was when I was about 2 and 3 years old. So I guess my dad inspired me. So he's also to blame for this course in my life. And once I was around 5 years old and we moved to Michigan, then I started taking lessons as well. And so that's when the whole musical thing began. I can't remember a time when I wasn't playing piano. So that's a strange thing. Before I learned how to ride a bike and how to write and read, all that, there was a piano and there was music. So it's bound up with my earliest memories, and it's obviously it's the thing that's brought me the most consistent and reliable joy in life. And I worship it like it's an entity. It's such a defined quality. Nothing else to me feels like that. And the best things in life that I am able to experience that aren't music just remind me of music. So it's our connection to some ineffable and unquestionable kind of goodness. And I feel like music itself is this definitive proof screaming out at us to, for once and for all, accept that there is some benevolent power at the heart of all things. Even if we can't understand it or have it proven to us by any other means, we can prove it to ourselves by the way music makes us feel. It's not some fluke, and any biological reason that we have in our wiring that allows us to feel that should just be even further confirmation that our body wants us to feel this way because it reacts this way to something like music and pizza.
On that note, Andrew, thanks so much for your time, man.
Yeah, thank you.
The album
Excellent
is out
question.
everywhere Friday. You're not alone. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.